Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all in this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000, and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude, unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit, and I'm entitled this one, No Such Thing as Free Will. Yeah, because there's no such thing as free will, because in the scriptures, there's a lot of accounts where men try to do their own thing, but eventually Yahweh Shemel Shai put it upon their spirit to do another thing. For example, let me get the account real quick. This is 1 Kings chapter 22 and verse 20. And the Lord said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. Verse 21, and there came forth the Spirit and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him. So this is going into the account, of King Ahab, how pretty much who was going to go up to the king, to lead him to get put to death. Because there's always a council in the heavens that happens before, judgment plays out upon the earth. Because majority of the people upon the planet Earth, are people, the nation of Israel, that comprise of these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And these heathens, in their minds, well, 2/3 of the nation of Israel, in their minds, they think that, judgment just goes out randomly, that it just happened just because, or people do bugged out things, just because. But no, ultimately it was already written in the heavens, what would happen to each individual person. A lot of people that, came into the truth and fell out, or a lot of people who rejected the truth, ultimately Yahweh Shemel Shai already put it up on their mind to fall out or to come into the truth. Because, you can't wake anybody up according to your power. It's ultimately Yahweh Shemel Shai putting it upon the spirit, upon their minds of each individual, to wake up to the truth or to reject it. Right here, verse 23, or verse 22, and the Lord said unto him, wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him and prevail also, go forth and do so. Yeah, so ultimately is Yahweh Shemel Shai to put it upon the spirit of those false prophets to prophesy deceit unto King Ahab, so he could, get put to death. Verse 23, and now therefore, behold, the Lord hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these thy prophets, and the Lord hath spoken evil concerning thee. Yeah, and that's right. All these false prophets that you see out here, ultimately it was Yahweh Shemel Shai who set them up, to lead the 2/3 of the nation of Israel astray, because not everybody's meant to get this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's how there's no free will, because when you first came into this truth, you tried to wake your family members up, friends that you had in the world, your co-workers, whatever it may be, and ultimately they rejected this truth because it wasn't given unto them. But in your mind, when you first come in, you don't know a lot about the scriptures, but you got that zeal that burns in you, that you want to tell the whole world. But ultimately, then that's the bitter part. Not everybody's meant to get it. Not everybody's meant to get delivered. It's just meant for the elect. That's how there's no free will, because ultimately it was Yahweh Shemel Shai to put it up on the spirit of each individual brother or sister, to wake up to the truth. It wasn't according to our own will, because when we were in the world, we were always searching for the truth, searching for why the world is the way it is, And ultimately, Yahweh Shemiah Shai led us to the true men of the Lord, the true prophets, starting with the apostles and elders, the elder bishops of Great Millstone, who got the 100% truth. Because a lot of Israelites, they know that they're Israelites. They woke up to the fact that they're Israelite, but still, they don't have the 100% truth because they're still that old man. These other camps, pushing carnality, not really pushing prophecy. They teach you the basics, that you're an Israelite, that you came on slave ships, that Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man is the devil. But that's about it. It don't go any deeper than that, because it's deeper than just knowing that you're an Israelite. You got to change the old ways that you had in the world. Put off that old man, put off any worldly lusts that you had before. Because these other camps, they're still doing worldly shit. For example, the ISUPK, the other day they were out there marching at the park, in front of a bunch of white people, pretty much trying to intimidate them. And days before that, they were in a so-called training camp, getting pepper sprayed, doing push-ups. That's all worldly shit that doesn't really pertain to what Yahweh Shai commanded us to do. Because ultimately it's Yahweh Shemiah Shai to put it up on the spirit of each man, each woman, to walk, their life. Their life was already written before you was even born. This is Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 24. Man's goings are of the Lord, Yahweh Shemiah Shai. How can a man then understand his own way? And that's right, on a daily basis, whatever it may be, our walk is already written. Our day's already written, before we even wake up, because Yahweh Shemiah Shai is the creator and controller of everything. He controls what goes down throughout the planet Earth. He controls, the mindset, the minds of these people out here. He controls the mind of the elect, and he also controls the minds of the 2/3. Because a lot of these other camps, these Christian churches, they don't believe in free will. Or Salakia, they believe in free will. They think that, whatever they do is according to their own will. But no, ultimately, they're just fulfilling what Yahweh Shemiah Shai already put up on their spirit to do. This is Job chapter 33 and verse 15. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, and slumberings upon the bed. Verse 16, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction. So before you even wake up, Yahweh Shemiah Shai already put it up on your spirit while you're sleeping to carry out whatever Yahweh Shemiah Shai put it up on your spirit to do that day. Because you wonder, why a lot of people are so bugged out. Why people do crazy shit. They go into a store and shoot it up, or they get in front of a train and get put to death, or go fall out from the truth and go back into the world. That was ultimately Yahweh Shemiah Shai sealing it up on their mind to do so. Verse 17, that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from men. That's right. It was up to people out here, trying to do their own will, and they would be they are very proud, and in their minds they think whatever that they're doing, it's according to their own will. Whatever they've accomplished, they think is because of them. But us, in his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, we know that is all Yahweh Shemiah Shai is doing. That is all his power. Because even these presidents, Donald Trump, Putin, the Chinese president, whatever it may be, Yahweh Shemiah Shai is even controlling their minds. He's controlling the minds of the Rothschilds and the elites, the wicked elite of Esau, Edom, to carry out his will. Because these Edomites, these wicked elite, they think that they're doing their own will, that the N to the W to the O is their plan, but really is Yahweh Shemiah Shai's plan. He's putting it upon their minds to carry out, his will, because he wants majority of the world judged. Especially here in America, 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're going to get put to death by the way of fire, and these heathens. But ultimately, it's Yahweh Shemiah Shai that's going to put it upon the spirit of these kings, these presidents, these prime ministers, these wicked elite to come down with that great wrath to shoot missiles at America in the land of Israel, and wherever they're gonna hit. This is Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will. So the king's mind, it's in the hand of Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai. He's controlling what these presidents, these prime ministers, these kings of these different nations do. Because sometimes you think like, damn, why is Donald Trump imposing all these tariffs, going up against all these different nations, doing away with his allies? It's all ultimately Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai, so prophecy could be played out. They're just chess pieces on the board. Nothing more, nothing less. But he's gonna use these different kings, these different presidents to fulfill his will. Because a lot of these Americans, these Babylonians, 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're wondering like, damn, why is Donald Trump fucking up the economy? Why is he messing up the country even more? He promised to make it great again. Ultimately it's all to fulfill prophecy, because this place that we call America, Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed. But a lot of these Israelites, 2/3 of the nation of Israel, in these other camps, they don't believe that this place is going to be destroyed by the way of fire. In their minds, they think that, it's going to continue on forever. But no, this place is going to be destroyed by the way of fire. And even though these Christian churches and these other Israelite camps, they love to push prosperity doctrine, that everything's going to be okay, that America's not going to be destroyed. That's all false doctrine. But ultimately, Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai even put it up on the spirits of these Israelite camp leaders, these other Israelite camp leaders that are pushing false doctrine, and these Christian church pastors to deceive their people. This is Job chapter 12 and verse 16. With him is strength and wisdom. The deceived and the deceiver are his. That's right. These people, these camp leaders, these other camp leaders, and these, these Christian church pastors and the Roman Catholic churches, whatever it may be, the black unconscious community, Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai put it up on the spirit of these so-called leaders of these false religions, to lead 2/3 of the nation of Israel astray, because he doesn't want them to get the 100% truth. Ultimately, because he wants them destroyed, he doesn't want them to get the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai. That's why the deceived and the deceiver are his. They're doing Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai's will, because in their minds they think that they're doing their own will, that they took the bag, they took the 501c3. No, it was Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai that did that, to put it up on their spirit, put it up on their minds, to do that madness, to lead their people astray, like sheep to the slaughter. This is Isaiah 29 and verse 9. Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. That's right. 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're drunken off that wine, drunken of all the philosophies of Babylon, drunken with the American dream, drunken with the philosophies of Trump, that he's gonna make America great again. Going to college, working these 9 to 5s, you can retire and be happy. That's that strong drink. That's that strong delusion. But ultimately, it was Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai that led him to drink of that cup, because even us, we were drunken with the philosophies of Babylon, to go to college, marry your women and live a happy life with a picket fence, a white picket fence, and then everything was going to be okay. But once that wine wore off, when Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai brought us into this truth, when he put it up on our spirit to wake up from that drunken state, off the philosophies of Babylon, then we came to the understanding to know that, it was all bullshit. It was all lies. But 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're still drunken with the philosophies of this place. But ultimately it was Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai who put that spirit upon them. This is verse 10. For the Lord had poured upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and had clothed your eyes, the prophets, and your rulers, the seers, that he covered. And that's right. It was ultimately Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shai who blinded 2/3 of the nation of Israel, these other Israelite camp leaders, these Christian church pastors, to not get the truth. because ultimately he wants them destroyed. He doesn't want them to get the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of Yahweh Shem Shai. That's why they're out here pushing false doctrine, pushing to the congregation that, America's going to be healed, that America has another 20, 30 years, whatever madness they're preaching, ultimately is all false doctrine. It's all bullshit. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 11. And for this cause, Yahweh Shem Shai shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. And that's right. All these 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're in that state of being in that strong delusion, being asleep, but ultimately it's Yahweh Shem Shai who blinded these people, because in their minds, they think that, they're doing their own thing, that, they went to college, achieved the so-called American dream, building up their 401k, building up their pension, having a wife, 3 kids, a dog, the white picket fence. That's a strong delusion, because that's all going to get taken away very soon. When Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, comes down with that great wrath, all that wealth that these 2/3 of the nation of Israel and these heathens have been building up, that's all going to get taken at the snap of a finger. And their minds are going to be like, damn, what happened? We worked our whole lives to build this up, and now it just got taken away. What are we going to do? And a lot of them, they're going to go down to Esau, Edom for help, go down to Pharaoh for help, and they're going to take that Karagman, they're going to take that MOTB, because they don't know that this place that we call America is Babylon the Great, and is going to be destroyed by the way of fire for taking that Karagman to utterly destroy the mother of all harlots. Verse 12, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in all righteousness. And that's the 2/3 of the nation of Israel. They don't believe in the true gospel of Yahweh Shem Shai, the true message of repentance. They believe in their own philosophies. They're leaning in their own understanding, because in their minds, they think that it's right. They think that whatever they're doing that feels good to the flesh is right. But no, it's all unrighteousness. If it's not of Yahweh Shem Shai, then is pretty much completely contrary to the scriptures. Because they're doing their so-called own will, which really is Yahweh Shem Shai to set it up that way. And that's why they're going to get destroyed, because they're doing their so-called free will, doing their own thing. And ultimately it's Yahweh Shem Shai to let them to do that. Verse 13, for we are bound to give thanks always to Yahweh Shem Shai for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because the Most High hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. So from the very beginning, before the earth was even formed, the elect were already picked out from the nation of Israel to be delivered, to receive that salvation, to receive the truth. It wasn't our own will that we just happened to stumble upon the truth. We might have been on the YouTube scrolling, and then a great millstone video popped out, or we might have been walking, by downtown, whatever city you may be, and we stumbled upon the great millstone camp, in person. That was all ultimately Yahweh Shem Shai to let us there, so we could get the truth, we could get the true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the heavens. So we could receive deliverance, receive salvation from the incoming destruction that's about to take place in America. But that's only going to be part of the elect, starting with the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Those are the ones who have been sanctified before the earth was formed. And Lord willing, we're a part of that number. But these 2/3 haven't received that. That's why they're out here through. Yeah, that's pretty much the point. Pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from the well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom.